Hello, Savannah. Thank you for tuning into WRULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And welcome to Real Estate Real Talk with myself, Julia M. Spencer. Happy New Year, everybody. Yay! Thank you so much for tuning in again to my show here every Wednesday at noon until about 1 o'clock. We talk about investment topics related to real estate, anything and everything related to being a landlord, being a tenant, and anywhere and everywhere in between, and all kinds of adventures that I endeavor myself into. I am myself a small real estate investor here in Savannah, Georgia, and also in surrounding states and other cities also in Georgia, primarily here in Savannah, Georgia. And I do a lot of tax sale foreclosures. I also own a bunch of Airbnbs, and I have been a owner of real estate since the age of 23. I'm a 51 now. Shh, don't tell anybody. And have a lot of experience, let's say that. That's to say the least. And I have done just about anything, ran into just about any problem. And on the show, I share those problems, how they were resolved or how they were not resolved, in order to hopefully help you not to make the same mistakes that I did, or at least, get you some ideas and some other stuff that you can do in case you run into a problem. And the show is set up pretty much the same every week. It is recorded. It is on my YouTube channel later on, as well as on the WRUU.org website, so you can check out past shows there. My channel is just my name, Julia M. Spencer, and of course, WRUU.org, where you can also find past shows. Sometimes we have people that I interview. Other times I just babble on myself for a whole hour. And other times I'll just bring other materials from other places where we can just discuss it a little bit and bring some information into the fold here. And incidentally, that is what we're going to do today. Pretty much for the first half hour, I present a couple issues. The main topic for the day, of course, is the question as to whether landlords these days are colluding on rent. That's our topic today. And on the second part of the show, past the bottom of the hour, past some announcements, we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of things that are going on right now. We had a tax sale foreclosure sale here in Chatham County yesterday that I went to. And although I didn't buy anything, it was a completely different format from what I'm used to. And I'll give you guys a little bit of review on how that went. And also, I guess I have another house I need to deal with here in this county. So let's talk about that towards the second part of the show. But for the first part of the show, let's talk about this topic of whether landlords are colluding on rent. And for that particular purpose, I'm going to actually play you guys a clip, or rather it's about about 10 minutes report that was done by CNBC. It's on YouTube. It's actually a video that's called Are Landlords Colluding on Rent, which kind of summarizes the issue, because we are currently in a situation where the Justice Department actually sued a couple of very large landlords here in the country. And this is ongoing right now. And they're basically telling them that they need to stop colluding on rent. And this particular article here kind of summarizes the viewpoints of CNBC. So these are not necessarily my viewpoints. But before any of this, I want to tell you also that the viewpoints expressed in the entire program are not necessarily those of WRUU, its license holder, or its staff. Without further ado, let me play this video here, and you get kind of like the idea of what we're going to be talking about today a little bit.
The average rent in the United States across all forms of housing is over $1,950 a month. Prices are falling in the West and South, but still rising in the Midwest and Northeast.
When we moved here, it was around $4,000. In 2023, it's over $6,700.
We were going to get a 23% increase, which we felt was like an eviction notice. It was an eviction notice.
Experts say the U.S. needs to build over 4 million new apartment homes by 2035 to keep pace with demand. Otherwise, the pricing power of landlords may grow.
There's not enough housing in the U.S., so guys like us that own 80,000 well-located apartments, we're still in a pretty good spot.
A group of large landlords is now being sued for their approach to business. The lawsuits focus on their agreements with RealPage, a major provider of property management software.
Effectively, RealPage is facilitating a housing cartel.
If that's true, will landlords owe their tenants money? And what will that mean for the future of home rental prices in the United States? The lawsuit brought by the D.C. Attorney General covers over 50,000 apartment units in the district, which were allegedly charged inflated rents for years.
In the District of Columbia, we're confronting, like many communities, an affordability challenge in housing. Our housing supply doesn't keep up with the demand. So as a result, we have ever-increasing pressure on pricing, and rents are already high. But what's of significance for the District of Columbia is the concentration of multifamily units, particularly in large apartment buildings with more than 50 units in them.
For example, see the portfolio of Bozzuto. The company and its affiliates allegedly use RealPage recommendations to set prices on over 15,000 housing units in the district, according to this complaint. Landlords like JBG Associates, Avalon Bay, Mid-America Apartment Communities, and Equity Residential were also named in the complaint, which was filed in November 2023.
If you talk about the large apartment buildings in our city, the market concentration is north of 50, 60%. And then if you add in that type of market with the total DMV, you have close to an 80 or 90% concentration of units in these named defendants. They are not only providing housing in the District of Columbia, these are national players.
For example, Greystar managed over 700,000 units in 2023. 3 of the 14 named defendant landlords filed motions to dismiss the case in January 2024, according to D.C. Superior Court records. An initial conference for the case is scheduled for May 2024. The defendant landlords declined to comment on pending RealPage litigation. This lawsuit and others focus on the software that's provided by Richardson, Texas-based RealPage. RealPage products are used to set prices on roughly 4.5 million housing units in the United States. That includes the units in this complex, some of which had rents starting at just under $3,000 a month in January 2024.
We've been told as tenants by employees of Equity that the software takes empathy out of the equation so they can charge whatever the software tells them to charge.
Property managers started to price apartments with RealPage products in the mid-2000s.
It's pretty much unequivocal. Just turning the system on and letting it perform will outperform your manual analyst. There's almost no way it can't.
Jeffrey Roper is the inventor of YieldStar. The product was acquired by RealPage in 2002. Its model was combined with another software, Lease Rent Options, and reintroduced in a new AI tool dubbed AI-RM for short.
So you're going to find large REITs and portfolios out there. Absolutely, it's everywhere. You know, I can tell you from the design of YieldStar, it is not directly looking at what the guy across the street is doing in order to determine my rents. He has pieces falling into vacancy points in time that I do not have.
The company says its software can increase a landlord's revenues by 2 to 7%. RealPage told CNBC that it charges landlords a fixed fee for each unit that it helps manage, regardless of its rent price. What happens with the proceeds is up to private equity giant Thoma Bravo, which acquired RealPage for $10.2 billion in 2021. In court filings, Thoma Bravo claimed that it's not liable for the acts of its subsidiary. The Attorney General in D.C. says local landlords complied with RealPage's recommended prices over 90% of the time.
Our complaint alleges that the terms of agreement that the landlords and property owners agree to compel those landlords to charge the rents that the algorithm that RealPage creates spits out. So rather than making independent decisions on what the market here in DC calls for in terms of filling vacant units, landlords are compelled under the terms of their agreement with RealPage to charge what RealPage tells them.
RealPage told CNBC that its landlord customers are under no obligation to take their price suggestions. It also says that the algorithm may suggest downward price revisions, depending on the context. That could depend on how much housing gets built, according to expert testimony in Congress.
The problem is that as prices have gone up since 2011, we have not seen an entry of new developers that compete with those that are incumbent.
New construction in key housing markets like Orange County, San Francisco, and New York is low, according to forecasts shared by companies like Equity Residential.
We're 96% occupied. We raised the dividend 6% a few months ago. So the story is housing is expensive and undersupplied.
That could give landlords more power to increase rents.
This dynamic of one tenant to a massive landlord, when it's one-on-one, you really have almost no hope. They can basically crush you.
Equity's investor materials say the company started to implement apartment pricing software between 2005 and 2008.
They were using some kind of system that every day you would check and see what the rents were. The entire process had always been stressful, but over the last couple of years, especially after COVID, it just got so much worse.
Rita Botello says she moved into Portside Towers beginning in 2004. She moved out after a 2022 rent hike, which left her living with relatives.
Even in the area that we're in right now, my stepkid's apartment, the rents here are also going up. They're also now fearful.
It affects people whether they have rent control or not, right? It's manipulating what the market rate is.
Tenants across the United States have launched numerous lawsuits against their landlords for using RealPage. At least 34 landlords were involved in litigation. In 2023, the Justice Department filed a statement of interest in the class action, arguing that the complaints adequately allege violations of the Sherman Antitrust Act. The Honorable Judge Waverly Crenshaw in Tennessee will preside over the case. He set a February deadline for a response from the defendants. The lawsuits ask if the conduct of RealPage and the defendant landlords violate antitrust laws or otherwise meet a legal definition of collusion.
The lawsuit we brought is under our DC antitrust statute. Our lawsuit is aiming to do three things. First and foremost, it's to put an end to this practice. We're also seeking a monitor to come in and put fresh eyes on these landlords and the RealPage practices. And then finally, we're seeking monetary damages, penalties, but also restitution for tenants who have been unfairly and illegally required to pay inflated rents higher than what a naturally competitive market would have set for them.
These systems are carefully designed to avoid collusion, to avoid conflict with fair housing and any other regulatory environment. As we analyze the markets, we find the opportunity for pricing dominance to be really questionable. There's just not as much concentration as we like to see in the markets.
Roper, the inventor of YieldStar, now develops revenue management software for the e-commerce industry. Similar products are also used in hotels, grocery stores, and to set prices on toll roads. Back in Jersey City, tenants at Portside Towers believe their building is subject to rent control. The local housing authority agreed, ordering restitution that's potentially worth millions of dollars. Equity Residential told CNBC it's filed a lawsuit in federal courts challenging that decision, which was separate from the RealPage complaints.
But for the city's non-enforcement, we wouldn't be subject to RealPage software or even market rate. There is no market rate under rent control.
We not only lost our home, but we lost our community. We lost everything.
The Attorney General in D.C. hopes his case will preserve housing affordability in the district.
It's not only illegal and unlawful. In this day and age, it's just immoral and wrong. And that's why we felt it necessary to bring this antitrust lawsuit when we did.
And that was an article that or rather a video that I just played from CNBC, our Landlords Colluding on Rent. You can watch that on YouTube right there. And that's kind of like our topic here for today, is this particular antitrust lawsuit here that was filed. Kind of to summarize is that several very large-scale landlords have been sued by the federal government for allegedly colluding on using the software that is being provided by a company called RealPage that basically gets all these companies and their units together to artificially raise rent prices across the board, which then basically changes the market rates for everybody, like even people that do not use that particular software, maybe aren't even apartment complexes. And I have actually seen this type of software before. I did not know that it's actually being used on apartment complexes. As I own my own home, I've rented before, obviously, but I haven't really looked into that. But as far as using Airbnb or VRBO, they always come up with recommendations of what the rent price should be. And I am sure that they go for everybody that's basically registered with their particular product, like Airbnb or VRBO, whatever you're using, and assesses how much people are willing to pay for any particular day or any particular night, and then they accumulate that somehow through some sort of algorithm and then spit that out for the rest of the people to adopt those prices. And I have adopted those prices myself as well, because a lot of times I just don't know what to charge or what is a particular weekend. If there's anything specific going on, like in the city of Savannah, if we have an event going on, namely St. Patrick's Day is one of our biggest events, actually is the biggest event here in Savannah, where the prices just skyrocket. But that's just because at that particular time, there's a lot of demand, and so the prices are increased. And of course, that is being then spit out by the software in order for me to take the recommendation or leave it in order to set my prices. Now, what I have found personally with Airbnb specifically is that the prices that are being recommended by the software are usually too low. And I can usually fill my vacancies with even higher prices than what they recommend. And that, of course, does not apply to long-term tenants or other kind of apartment complex tenancies like they're discussing in this article. So we shall see what is going on. There might be a restitution of rent payments to some people that have overpaid. As you heard from the article, here in the South, rents are actually decreasing overall, while as in the North, like in New York, New Jersey, those kinds of areas, it's increasing. So those viewpoints, of course, are MSNBC. They're not mine or part of what WREU once spread out as far as information. But I just wanted to bring you to this awareness that there is a civil antitrust lawsuit. And they're basically alleging that the Sherman Antitrust Act to protect competition in the marketplace has been violated. And it's basically they came up with a modern way to violate this century-old law to harm consumers in the process. And again, RealPage is a property management software, and they're the ones that provide that software to a couple of very large portfolio holders of commercial real estate, which is, it's residential real estate, but for them it's commercial because it's apartment complex, not individual residential properties. Of course, RealPage is, of course, responding that they, even though they make these recommendations, all the landlords that use their software are not in any way obligated to accept these recommendations for prices. They can accept or reject. And, of course, that is the issue. The Department of Justice is alleging that there is a sort of a housing cartel going on that RealPage has instigated. Of course, the main concern is the fact that rent is the leading driver of inflation. We have to see how to dissect this a little bit. I have a couple more minutes. I can give my personal comments here. I'm just kind of watching this. It doesn't really 100% apply to me because I don't have apartment complexes, and I pretty much know more or less what rents I should charge, even long term, because I keep my eye on that just by asking real estate agents, and they're the ones that know what properties are going for in the area. But the problem here, of course, is that when very large concentrations of real estate portfolio managers come into an area, for example, as the article had stated, in Washington, D.C., or in any of those metropolitan, really big, huge, humongous cities, and they have a lot of units in those particular cities, that they're able to collude together to raise the prices, which then basically rides up the prices for everybody else, and basically pricing tenants out of any specific area. And You don't even have to use the software in order to be affected by it as a landlord or as a tenant. And that is basically what they're alleging in these large metropolitan areas. So it doesn't necessarily apply to us here in Savannah. But again, if you're moving to a place like Atlanta, there's definitely a portfolio that is listed there in Atlanta and a couple of complexes up there that are also listed in this lawsuit. So that is something to think about. And of course, one of the other things that they had mentioned in this article, that landlords took recommendations of RealPage, the software company, 90% of the times. And of course, I don't know if you heard this in the article, but the founder and the developer of RealPage, which has since sold it off, of course, was also interviewed for this article. And he basically said that an AI-guided software that analyzes rent prices can be much, much more efficient than a personal analyst. And of course, the tenants on the other side is it takes basically all empathy and ethics out of the whole process of how to rent a property, because you're not looking at any particular tenant or their situation. You're using the software and you're shutting off any kind of feeling associated with it. A lot of problems with this, of course. For example, how do you assess exactly what should be normal rent in any specific market versus what the software spits out? How do you find that delta? And if you're alleging, of course, in this lawsuit, the Department of Justice is asking for restitution to tenants that have been harmed by this kind of scheme. How do you calculate that kind of delta? How do you figure out what kind of restitution should be forthcoming to those tenants? So a lot of issues with this, a lot of complications. Not really sure if it's going to resolve anytime soon. I'm kind of curious to watch this. I have read from other articles regarding this topic that there might be a settlement offer that might have been made or is being made by some of these very large portfolio managers to settle the lawsuit, and not sure what's going to come from that for tenants or former tenants. So if you are living in an apartment complex, kind of keep an eye on that, I would recommend. The other thing is, I'm not really sure, as I mentioned, you're not really sure what is normal market rent, but the point is that once these prices are inflated by a large player in any particular market that uses this kind of software to inflate prices, even once this lawsuit is finished and completed, and maybe even to the benefit of the tenants and prices are adjusted down, what's done is done. First off, there's a lot of damage that was already done by this to tenants that have paid these high prices, inflated prices. But on top of that, I have really not seen it happen very often where rent prices went down for an extended amount of time. So once prices go up, they don't usually go down. It's kind of like the same as when you buy real estate. Real estate prices, or whatever you pay for a property, you're usually going to see appreciation in the value of your real estate. You're never going to see depreciation in terms of, you will see depreciation on the tax side, but you won't see the actual price depreciation or reduction in price in the future. So this is why I believe real estate investing or owning real estate is such a great avenue to become wealthy over a long period of time, because the investment can not lose if you do everything right, obviously. So one of the things, of course, listen to this particular podcast or rather radio show, or watch my videos, because I teach you some of the things to avoid. But in all, it is fairly safe investment and you cannot lose. And so the value of real estate is only going to go up. And even if this particular lawsuit is decided in the favor of tenants, eventually rent will go up again and again and again and forever into the future. So I'm not sure exactly how useful all this effort is right now. We might not see a lot of value in it. You know, it's a very valid case, I believe. For morally, ethically, it's good to make this stance here and to decide on this kind of topic, but is it going to be in the long term very effective to tenants? I doubt it. Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth here. We are at the bottom of the hour, and it is my responsibility now to play a couple of announcements for you. So I will do that right now, and we'll be right back after this, once I find them, of course. And you're listening to, of course, Real Estate Real Talk with Julia M. Spencer. And I'll be right back after this, so stay on. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to your radio station, WRUU, which is presented by people just like you, people from your community. The voices you hear are your neighbors, coworkers, and other Savannah residents. Therefore, WRUU is your community radio station. So won't you please help by donating whatever you can afford to help your neighbors stay on the air? Go to WRUU.org and support your local radio station with a monetary contribution of any amount. Again, you can support your local radio station at WRUU.org. Thank you.
Bike Walk Savannah offers bicycle education programs for children and adults, including bicycle rodeos. Nationally certified instructors ensure that all education programs are safe, informative, and enjoyable for participants. They also offer customized programs for businesses and other organizations that are seeking to make bicycling and walking part of their employees' wellness programs. More information is available at bikewalksavannah.org.
Tune in to Way Left of the Dial every Monday afternoon here on WRUU from 4 to 6 p.m. for Music with an Edge with Tom. It's Way Left the Dial every Monday afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m. here on WRUULP 107.5 FM.
WRUU 107.5 is a proud community radio station bringing Savannah the best talk shows, music, and entertainment with global soul. We here at the station want to thank you, Savannah, for listening, donating, and inviting us to be a part of the community. Because of you, we've been able to engage with the community at events like Juneteenth and Earth Day. We're always appreciative of opportunities like those, and we look forward to seeing more of you, Savannah, in the future.
That was Better Days by Glockenbach. Love that song. I heard that actually on a German radio. Thank you so much for staying with me here for Real Estate Real Talk with Julia M. Spencer. I didn't click my button there correctly. Here I am. I'm back. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. Real Estate Real Talk, my show here every Wednesday at noon. We talk about real estate and real estate investing, anything and everything related to the topic. And I got some stories for you. Yay! Stories are always best. So yesterday was actually a tax sale foreclosure sale here in Chatham County. The venue has changed. They moved it from outside to inside the Civic Center on the second floor there. Must have been at least 100 people there. It was very, very full. Every seat was taken. In the end, they only had about 6 or 7 properties they were auctioning off. And I still am just baffled. I go to these sales and I'm looking at these people bidding on pieces of marshland for thousands of dollars. And I'm like, what are you going to do with this? There was actually a piece of land that was sold that was 5 feet by 90 feet. It was basically a strip of land that was on the side of somebody else's property, I guess, and they were auctioning that off. There's nothing in the world yet you can put there. Maybe, I don't know, a mattress? I don't know. You definitely can't build anything on it. There's building codes here in Chatham County where the width and the length of a house, or the minimum thereof, is specified, and that particular lot is not one that you can do anything as far as building with. So I'm just kind of curious, I almost want to interview some of these people that bought these properties and kind of interview them and find out what their plans are. And so this is going to be my topic for some of the next shows here, because I'm going to get a hold of some of these people and ask them some questions. In my opinion, I think that we are kind of like on this roller coaster of real estate just inflating in prices so astronomically that people show up at these tax sales with very little information, with very little knowledge, with very little understanding of how due diligence works, how you research these properties, how you find if something is worthwhile buying even. And of course, the tax commissioner is not going to put that information forth. They do actually do a very good job. We have a tax commissioner, Miss Sonia Jackson, that goes out frequently to these sales and talks to people. However, she is not responsible to educate you on how the tax sale foreclosure process works. That's not her responsibility. That's for you to figure out and or learn, from anybody. Actually, yesterday, as I was leaving the Civic Center, there was somebody explaining to an elderly couple, from what I've seen, how the whole entire tax sale foreclosure process worked outside the doors. So, and some of the information that I heard was sort of accurate, not really, but it was better than nothing. Let's say it that way. It's better than going into one of these tax sales and just buying anything. So, and talking about anything and everything, let's dive into this next topic. So, I already knew yesterday when I went to this tax sale that I probably wasn't going to buy anything, but I did go because I wanted to see who showed up. I wanted to see if there's any people that I know. I wanted to find out what the prices are being paid at these auctions. I go to these auctions specifically for that last thing, to kind of gauge the market and find out what the prices are for tax sale foreclosures these days. This is how I can compare it to maybe another market or another county. And on top of that, as mentioned, I wanted to just get out of bed and actually do something that is worthwhile. Not saying that I don't have enough to do, just saying this is more fun than most of the other stuff I have to do. So what I actually did after this tax sale, and I made myself a little note because I knew I wasn't going to buy anything. I do have actually a property here in Chatham County, so please bear with me here. I'm going to walk you through the story here. This is kind of cute, kind of interesting. I have two properties I purchased, I think 2 years ago. They are pieces of land. One of them is over by the President Street area, over there by the state name streets, and it's an undeveloped piece of land. I think there used to be a building on there at one point, hasn't been in a long time, and it is buildable. I did ask code people, the building inspectors, and I'm not even sure, I think, what the name of the government office is, but I did present this particular lot to them, and I asked them, what can I put there? And they kind of explained to me dimensions, what kind of building I can place there, kind of told me all of that. And so the other one, however, is a weird kind of lot. I purchased that not doing the same due diligence that I just told you that you all have to do, and that people yesterday at the auction probably didn't do. I did the same thing in the past. This is how I know don't make that mistake, and this is why I have this show and my YouTube channel, to teach you guys not to make those same mistakes. So in any case, I purchased the second lot at the same sale, I believe, about 2.5 years ago. And it's been sitting there ever since. So when I initially bought it, I did actually drive there and I looked at it, and it looked like there was a building on there, but we weren't really sure. It was very overgrown. And on top of that, it was located next to a drainage ditch. So there was an access road next to the drainage ditch to get to this property, but there wasn't an actual official street. The street would have been from the other side, but it wasn't completed. It wasn't built out on that side. So we saw the building there. I thought maybe somebody just dumped like a trash building there. What I'm saying is maybe like an old trailer and somebody just dumped there. But then we did realize that there is a power pole there right next to the property, which is or was at some point connected to the street. So there was power at this location at one point. But I never went back there. And the reason being is that it has been literally on my list for about 1.5 years to go back there and do this research and figure out what's going on, what the dimensions are of this lot, and what the status is of this property. Does anybody live there? Is it deserted? What is the issue here? And so I did go yesterday, and we are now in January, so vegetation has receded a little bit. It's not like in the deep of summer where you basically have to fight your way through a forest to get to a building. In this case, everything was kind of receded. The plant shrubbery, everything's kind of like died down right now. So I was able to actually go around this building to figure out what it is. So here's what I have. And I'm going to caveat that what I think I have, rather. So we will talk about the reason why I say that I think I have this property, but I'm not sure exactly. So here's what we're dealing with. This is a manufactured home or a mobile home. It's a double wide. It's actually quite large. I was able to walk around. I assessed that it was structurally pretty sound, although, of course, pretty much everything's busted, windows, doors, everything. But it's structurally, as a whole structure, it's still there. The roof is still there. Those are the most important things I look at. And front door, back door, busted in, windows are open. So I climbed in there yesterday. And I was telling this to my son when I came home yesterday. If anything had happened to me in there yesterday, nobody would have been able to find me probably in years. I would have been disappeared without a trace because, first off, I didn't tell anybody I was going there. Second off, nobody went with me. And third off, nobody's been there in a long time. This is like no man's land, Savannah, Georgia. It's actually unincorporated Chatham County, but it's just on the edge of the city of Savannah district there. And it's kind of nested in a little piece of wood, like a wooded area, where it's just barely visible from the street, but not really visible in the fact that you can say, oh yeah, somebody lives there. You can't really see it really good. So I'm thinking the people that live there probably know about it. You can't even see it on Google Maps because the trees have grown over top of it so much that you don't see the dimensions of this building on Google Maps whatsoever. So something would have happened to me yesterday. I would have not been here today to do this radio broadcast and tell you about it. But thank goodness nobody was there. The place was deserted for a long, long time. And I ended up walking in there. It was daytime. It was sunny. I felt fairly safe, even though it was kind of creepy. It was like from Stranger Things, in the Upside Down. You kind of walk in there and you're like, okay, this is weird, Has a crime happened here? Am I going to walk into the next room and there's a dead body? I don't know. Anyways, this place was basically deserted at the last minute, I'm guessing. There's clothes strewn all over there and books and all the dishes. Everything is still in the kitchen, pots, pans, fake plants, kids' toys, which was really eerie. I actually picked up 2 baby dolls and took those with me home because I figured can't leave the baby dolls just laying there. I just do cool stuff like that. I took a mug with me, which I ended up washing, and it was perfectly fine mug to use. Anyway, it was kind of like my souvenir of yesterday's adventure. But here's what I think. I think this is my building because I purchased the land 2 years ago. Now, this may or may not be a manufactured home. I don't know. I do believe that manufactured homes are part of personal property instead of actual real estate. And this particular building is not listed on the tax commissioner's website as a building on there. But the thing is, it's not completely on my lot. It's actually halfway on my lot and halfway on the next person's lot. And I do remember that about a year ago or so, I tried to contact, I didn't call, I didn't have a number, but I did send a letter to the particular person that's listed as the owner of the adjacent lot. And basically asked him, hey, let's talk. I think we have this building on here. I don't want to go there without informing you if it's yours. And of course, you probably don't want to go there without informing me because you think it's mine. Let's just figure this out because we have a building that's in no man's land, basically. It's in somebody's land. We just don't know whose land. So we have kind of situations. So I don't know if this building is mine. I do know that where I entered it, that was my land. I know that for sure. So I am on land that belongs to me. Whether or not this building belongs to me, I'm not sure. But I did go in there. So can you call it trespassing? Probably, but not sure. Maybe. But in any case, there was nobody there to tell me one way or the other. And if a cop had showed up, I would have told him the same thing that I'm telling you guys right now. I just don't know. I'm trying to figure out what's going on, but I need to assess the situation. So I took some pictures. I took some videos. I checked the power line. It was fairly safe to say that there was no power running to this house and hasn't been in a long time. I think I did see a trailer tag or something. And I took a picture of it. I'm not sure if there's a government office here in Chatham County where I can check and see who the owner is by looking up that tag number. Of course, the last one that was on there was from 2017, which is already 8 years ago. And this house looks like it's been there even longer than that. And so this is a developing story, my dear people here listening to me here on WRUU. We're going to have to figure out what to do. And there's, of course, a number of ways of how to handle this situation. The other owner and me could, of course, pay each other off. I could charge the other owner for rent, but they can also charge me for rent. I can buy their land, they can buy my land. But for all intents and purposes, when I did go to the building codes and inspection department, whichever the office is here in Chatham County that tells you what you can and cannot build on a piece of land here in Chatham County, they told me that this particular trailer or manufactured home, if it's there on that land, is there illegally. And when I did ask them how can it be illegally and the county doesn't know about it, they kind of said, well, we don't know about it. We should know about it. So that's when I kind of stopped the conversation, because I was like, okay, let me figure this out first before they start finding me stuff, because counties and government departments are very notorious for charging you for stuff if they see that there is some money to be had. So me talking about this here on this radio show, of course, hopefully doesn't raise any issues for me, but we'll see what happens. There's a lot of things that can happen. The other thing that I could do with this property, of course, I haven't paid any subsequent taxes on this property. I did get a notice from the county at one point saying that they're going to auction it off again. This is actually not a bad piece of information, because what I could do is just let it go to this auction. And according to what the prices are being paid for even a small piece of swampland in this county these days, this particular property with potentially a building on it could fetch me a lot of money that I can then collect as the delta, because the taxes outstanding right now aren't very high. So I could basically have the county sell the property at an auction on my behalf and collect the delta, which is basically called overage. So that is a strategy that I have seen other investors use. I've not done it myself before, but I have seen other people use it, and it is very useful. And by the way, this might also be the strategy that some of the investors yesterday used, buying the pieces of swampland, hoping that if they don't continue paying taxes on them, they'll go up for auction again at some point when in the future that particular piece of land is worth a lot more, or maybe some more unsuspecting investor wants to pay more. It doesn't mean it's worth more. And they can then collect also the overage or the excess proceeds on that. So interesting stuff going on. City of Savannah, Chatham County. I did tell my son about this whole thing. I showed him the 2 baby dolls that I recovered. Somebody, I guess, had left all their toys in there. Of course, everything is extremely dirty and pretty nasty. So everything is kind of like in the garage right now for me. If anybody wants to claim their baby dolls back, just contact me, and coffee mug. Those are the 3 things that I took. Interesting stories. Anyways, I'm going to update you guys on what I'm going to do. I did already reach out to my investor friend out in California and asked him what I could do legally to gain full ownership of this whole thing, this whole mess, or how to resolve it legally. I plan to also contact my Georgia-based attorney on this and ask him as well. Of course, he's not going to give me any advice as far as investing or what the best solution is, but he can at least tell me legally what I can do with this kind of situation. But it is an interesting situation. So in any case, thank you so much for listening to Real Estate Real Talk with Julia M. Spencer. And my show here on WRUU is broadcast live when I'm in town every Wednesday, 12:06 p.m. until 1 p.m. And shows are recorded and are later broadcast on YouTube or the WRUU.org channel, so check them out there. I look forward to hear your comments, suggestions, and any kind of information, or if you have any ideas of what I can do with this particular piece of property that I purchased. Anyways, have a great Wednesday, everybody. Bye-bye, and enjoy your week.
For your free guide to real estate investing, visit juliamspencer.com.